let the dogs out. Like, ooh, let the dogs out. Ooh, ooh.
Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. Always available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Always available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Good morning on this Monday. Welcome to the program, and what a show it will be with Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker. Coach Landry to join us a little bit later. Stuff to give away and message board bingo. This day in Tennessee sports history. Today's tough question and more. Jamie said Monster Energy. Yes, I do love the Monster Energy, and my new resolution, not my New Year's resolution, is to cut down on those a little bit because they can be a little addictive. So I got to be careful with that. Just smudge.
I know somebody that died of a heart attack from drinking too many.
Ready? I'm gonna dial it down then to my Coke Zero. So actually, I thought about that when I ran to the fridge right before we started the show. So good morning, Amanda LaFratta. How are you? You look glowing and lovely as always.
Thank you. I'm doing well, Dave. How are you?
I'm well. Listen, I'm incredibly excited for the remainder of the season. And I feel like there's a little bit of a hangover with this Tennessee football fan base that I really don't understand. So let's all take a step back with me, if you will. This has already been an incredible season. Tennessee is going to close out and win the rest of their regular season games. So a stat that I want you to tell all your friends about it, and I want you to do me a favor. Please do this. Tell them that you heard it on Off the Hook Sports, and it airs each and every weekday at 8:30. Okay? Keep this stat in mind. Before the game against Georgia kicked off, Tennessee had an 63% chance of making the college football playoff. That's pretty good. They beat Alabama and Florida. Why wouldn't you take that? Now, you go through that game, you think that's going to drop precipitously. That's going to be down in the 18%. It did not, because of what happened to Alabama and Clemson later that day. So if you went on offthehooksports.com, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you, Brittany. If you went on our website that Sunday morning, you knew, because I wrote it at 5 a.m., you knew that Tennessee's odds of making the college football playoff did not change at all. It was 63% according to ESPN's football projections indicator, the FPI, whatever they call it. Nothing has changed. With the Alabama loss, Tennessee doesn't have to worry about being the third team in a college football playoff. They have to worry about being the second team. That's a world of difference. I told you last week there was no way that three teams were going to get in. We don't even have to have that discussion, Amanda, because it's not going to be a discussion. And the other was Clemson, which you predicted would lose to Notre Dame. And honestly, at the time, I thought you were a little bit cuckoo. But you're not cuckoo. You've nailed it all year long. And Tennessee is a 63% chance of making the college football playoff and playing for a national title in year 2 under Josh Heupel. So please like, subscribe, and share. And Amanda, Tennessee fans, even though the Georgia game, and we're going to talk about it, we did after the game on Saturday, didn't go as planned, this Tennessee football team can achieve more than ever dreamed before the season.
Oh, yeah. I think they've already achieved more than anybody ever dreamed before the season with beating Alabama and beating Florida. And, you know, we knew Florida wasn't going to be that great, but Florida gave it everything they had. Alabama, I think everybody thought at the beginning of the season was going to be something special. it's not happening, whether or not it's lack of want to from the players, whether it's, this whole we have anxiety, yada, 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 whether it's, and I'm not knocking anxiety or anything like that. Just when you're in a situation of that magnitude, that's something that should have been addressed a long time ago. Whether it's
with the anxiety, I didn't see reports of anxiety other than the usual big game anxiety. What type of anxiety are we talking about?
so
Fans or players?
players,
Okay.
sorry, players came out and said that, like, when they played at Alabama, when they played at Tennessee, that it was so loud and stuff that they had just anxiety on the field and all this other stuff. That's something that you should have been prepared for. I mean, I'm not someone should have prepared you for that type of thing. And that's coming from somebody who has anxiety. But
I think you take the puke and go principle in football.
Yeah.
We had a player at my high school, Powell High School, right there in North Knoxville, for those that are listening in Finland. And thank you, Finnish audience. We greatly appreciate you. And this quarterback would go under center, and sometimes he would have time to pull his face mask up depending on the play clock. Sometimes he wouldn't, and he would lean over left guard, vomit, take the snap, and then go. So I don't think anxiety should affect you after you get hit that first time. There were a lot of things that went wrong early, whether it was anxiety or not. I think this is the first time that Tennessee went in as a team that was targeted by the fans, a team that was targeted by the other squad, and a quality team. I think that Georgia was absolutely amped. I think there were some comments made by former Tennessee quarterback Garrick Ainge that was tweeted out about the crowd wasn't that loud. I think Tennessee fans got uber amped about sending out Stetson Bennett's cell phone number, which to me is kind of sort of playful, but kind of not really, because it's one thing to send out like where they'll be at a hotel like they did 20 years ago. I mean, the concept of sending out those types of contact info is nothing new. But with a cell phone, it's really your lifeline to the world. If something happens to your family. So I wasn't too groovy about that. He said he got 600-700 calls on Friday night. All that. Tennessee fans, you acted like you hadn't been there before because you hadn't. So lesson learned, and you wake up on a Sunday morning and feel very blessed that you have the same odds of making the college football playoff as you did beforehand.
Yeah, because you got some help, clearly, with Alabama loss and Clemson loss. It's just, we talk about Georgia fans and grown men barking at people, how that's not a good. I mean, this, like, good Lord, like, calm down. You're grown men. But at the same time, with this whole let's blow up Stetson Bennett's phone, calm down. You're grown people. Stop it. Stop doing stupid stuff like that.
Yeah,
that and I would amps them up.
I would like to think that nobody over the age of 24 did that. I don't know, but I would like to think that was the case. So
no, much like the goalpost, raising money, the GoFundMe for the goalpost, it's not a joke. People really did that.
Yeah, that was a little bit silly. Jamie said Tennessee was used to feeling the love and they got a dose of hate. Yeah. That happened. Brittany said that was absolutely ridiculous. I assume she's talking about the phone. Who even does that? Yeah. I mean, that ranks you right up there with the people that call me daily to help me with my student loans that I never took out. I never took out any. Is this? I almost said my first name. I don't like my first name. Is this Mr. Hooker? Yes, this is Mr. Hooker. Can you confirm the last 4 digits of your social? No, I cannot, because why would I do that? Can you confirm your birthday? I'm like, okay, well, you can find that on Facebook. So I confirm my birthday, March 13th. I said, okay, would you like help with your student loans? I don't have any. I never did.
I have student loans, but the IRS, I don't have problems with the IRS. I don't have unpaid back taxes or whatever. They're like, can we get you out of this? I'm like, there's nothing to get out of. I'm good. Thank you. I paid my taxes.
I get that one too. And the other one what's the other one that I get so frequently? Well, I got in a streak there. I got like 5 calls from different fraternal order of polices.
Those.
And I got them from Georgia, South Carolina. It's like I'm supporting cops across the nation. And I got that. And then there was another one that I'll think about. So, yeah, Jamie says, confirm your social security number. And you know, the sad part about it, that actually happened to my grandfather, God rest his soul. And it happened, and he had to track that stuff down, and somebody spent $10,000 of his money in England. That's how widespread it was. And the crazy part about it is, not to get sidetracked, the same thing happened with somebody in the Tri-Cities that happened to be a good friend of mine, and he lived in the Knoxville area. So somebody was giving out those credit card numbers at the factory where they were printed, because they weren't anywhere close together. All right, the down and dirty at 30. Let's take a look back at this Georgia game, and then we're going to put that bad boy to bed. The down and dirty at 30 today is brought to you by Pedigo of Chattanooga, locally owned store where you will be treated like family, absolute family. As the region's foremost electric bike experts, they put their hearts into helping you find the perfect e-bike, and you can toll around beautiful Chattanooga and have a fantastic time. I'm trying to twist Amanda and her husband's arm to come down here and see us for a weekend, because it is super duper fun, all on me, I promise. So when's that going to happen? Huh?
I don't know.
It better happen soon. Because I gotta see me some LaFrattas. So this post, Stetson Bennett gets 700 calls in one night. The only person that calls me is the lady from Card Member Service. Yes, that one as well. The other one I get is my call. I get the call, would you like to extend your auto it's not auto insurance, it's auto
warranty.
Yes.
There's a meme.
I've never bought a new car in my life, and never will. I'm a big believer of buying one that's about 4 years old with low miles. That's what I do.
That's fair. That's fair. There's no warranty. Nowadays, I bought my first ever new car last year, and that's because the used car market was so expensive that it was cheaper to buy the brand new one.
Yeah, there have been times in the market where my stepdad, who works for a well-known car dealership in Knoxville, and I'll let you know who they are as soon as they become a sponsor, but he has had times where a lease, which most people think is a bad way to go, is actually a better way to go because tax purposes. So yeah, there are all kinds of reasons to buy a new car or not, or that's fine. Everybody has their thoughts on that. But I'll tell you, there's one thing that popped up this morning in my head of all the things that we can talk about. We did a lot of this in the post-game show, so we're with you after each and every college football playoff committee selection show, which we certainly didn't expect would be the case at the beginning of the year, so we're pulling extra duty. And then we're with you after each and every Tennessee football game, and Caleb Calhoun will join us from a casino not near you. But there was one thing that popped into my mind, because my takeaway as a whole was Tennessee's receivers didn't beat Georgia's secondary on Saturday. And I go back to the interception that Hendon Hooker threw. It looked like he was leading Georgia's defensive back, and it looked like a perfect throw. If they'd switched jerseys, you'd have been like, that's the most incredible throw ever. Well, a couple of things. Kirby Smart did not go too complicated. He made sure not to give up the big play. Things were going to happen in front of him, and that allowed Georgia's defense to be able to be multiple up front and do the same thing that Tennessee has done to people, which is stunts, twist, blitz, and all that good stuff. And it got to Hendon Hooker, but it got to Hendon Hooker because receivers weren't open. And I go back to one play, and I'm not laying it at somebody's feet. It is not one person's fault. But I go back and I was thinking this morning, what's the one play, if you could take one play to change that game? It's D. Williams, man. you have to catch that punt at the 15. You have to track that ball and not let it go out at the 1. You're immediately against a crowd that is against you. Your back's against the goal line. You're snapping the ball from the 1. It was one of the best punts I've ever seen.
Yeah.
A 75-yard punt. You have got to catch that ball. I don't know that it changes anything, but it just what struck me this morning. So what struck you, for those that didn't hear the post-game show, and I know a lot of you did because you listened to this morning before we went on, what struck you about the game overall in general? When you come away and somebody says, well, what happened at Tennessee-Georgia game? What struck you as the biggest takeaway?
I mean, there's a few things, but I think number one would be the fact that this Georgia team is a Jekyll and Hyde. We've seen that over and over and over. Against Oregon, they were dominant and they were fierce, and everyone was, oh, this Georgia team's amazing. Kent State, meh. Missouri, meh. Against Tennessee, they got up again for the game. But it's just like, which Georgia team are you gonna get? It's almost like they coast through until somebody motivates them to get up and play. And I think the College Football Playoff Committee putting Tennessee at number 1 was definitely the motivation that they needed. And then if you add on then other, former players saying that, oh, it's not that loud. Like, if you are a public figure, please don't put that out there, because you are just hurting this team. You don't need to. I don't understand why people poke the bear all the time, because they do. Why do you do that? If you could just slide in without poking the bear, why is that your thing? Like, why do that?
I think all fan bases get a little bit cocky. Gerald Riggs, former Tennessee quarterback, said that's exactly what I said. I think he's referring to the punt. He just retweeted this, so we appreciate that, Gerald. We need to get you on, Gerald. So Gerald's great at breaking stuff down. So Gerald may have just accidentally volunteered himself into some broadcast duty. But I do pay, so we can talk about that. G Riggs, who loved covering, just a great all-around guy. So at the end of the day, Tennessee got discombobulated. We thought they had the maturity to avoid that. They did not. Tennessee also just came out and said after the game that they didn't handle the crowd noise. A lot of teams don't like to say that because it's perceived as a weakness. But Amanda, they just came out and said that. They said it didn't handle the crowd noise well. Spoke to Jacob Warren about that. He is on our YouTube page. You can check that out. Please like, subscribe, and share. Again, I was looking at the analytics yesterday, and only about 20 to 30% of our listeners day in and day out have actually hit that subscribe button. So please hit that right now. Hit the notifications on so you know when we're on. We are on each and every weekday at 8:30 a.m. But they just came out and admitted it. Own it. Move forward. Don't let it happen again. The good news, I don't think it will happen again. If you look at the remaining games on Tennessee's schedule, there's no scary road venue. If you get in a college football playoff, then that's theoretically going to be split ticket-wise down the middle, Amanda. Now, I did see where somebody posted that they thought there was a chance that 1 and 4 could be, and Tennessee's not going to be probably in the top 4. Okay. I don't think on the college football playoff, but that doesn't mean they won't work back into it. So whatever you see on Tuesday night, take that with a grain of salt. So I saw somebody post that 1 and 4 could be Tennessee, Georgia, in the it would be the Mercedes-Benz Bowl, the semifinal, which would be the Chick-fil-A Bowl. They're not going to do that. They
never do.
Yeah, they don't want the so they will manipulate, orchestrate, whatever word you want to use, to some extent to make sure that doesn't happen. So I think Tennessee, if Georgia's the 1 seed, will get the advantage of being close to home, and you're looking at Tennessee going to Tempe. Now they have to win out. And they have to continue to play well, But really, I'll be real honest with you. I don't think they need a lot of help.
No, not at all. All the help they needed was this weekend, and they got it.
Exactly.
That's all the help that they needed. They needed one, either TCU or Clemson to fall, preferably Clemson, because everyone was going to shove them in there as bad as they looked. The whole, square peg round hole thing, that I felt like that was Clemson being in the playoffs. I mean, because they looked terrible. But they needed Alabama to lose, and they needed Clemson to lose. And both of those things happened this weekend. That's the only help that Tennessee needed. And honestly, if you go down the rest of the Tennessee games, if they struggle or if they lose one, then they don't need to be in the playoffs. I'm just saying that's not. If they lose one more game, then they do not need to be in the playoffs.
Do you think Georgia figured anything out as far as how to stop Tennessee's offense?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like it. It looked like they figured something out. But I think also the biggest factor was that crowd. And for people, really when you go after saying, oh, it's not that loud, you're not really going after the team, you're going after the fans. So you're going after the fanatics, the people who live and breathe, football, Georgia football, who bark at people, who are grown people and bark at other people. You're telling them, make it louder, make it impossible for our team to come in here and run our offense the way that we do. Do that. And you motivated them to do that.
I'm going to play the other side. I don't think Georgia figured anything out. I think that Georgia just played better, and they were the best set of defensive backs that Tennessee has played. Now, if they figured anything out, it was that just don't let anything beat you over the top. End of discussion. Do not let anybody get by you, which is easier said than done. So I don't think they necessarily came up with some sort of scheme to beat Tennessee that other teams can look at and replicate, because other teams don't have those players. So I don't know if they figured anything out. I think the crowd noise was definitely a factor. I think Tennessee faced a very different defensive front than they were used to. Why? Because, again, the secondary was able to cover for the most part, and you're able to send extra blitzers and things that Hendon Hooker wasn't aware of. But at the end of the day, I just thought Georgia played man-up football like Alabama and Florida wanted to do, and did a better job of covering dudes, just like if you're in the backyard. Not to oversimplify things, but I think that's basically what happened. Today's tough question is brought to you by Big Orange Phillies. If you watched the game at Big Orange Phillies on Saturday, you had a good time despite the loss, and you're able to shoot some stick. They got billiards, throw some darts. They got darts. They've got everything, including karaoke, which Amanda just rocks at. Karaoke song of choice is?
I would not do karaoke if I had a fifth of Jack Daniels in me. Doesn't happen. Doesn't matter. Nope. I sound like a dying cat. Not going to happen.
Well, if you want to sound like a dying cat, or you are actually good at karaoke, Big Orange Phillies in North Knoxville, Maynardville Pike is a great place to go, hang out, have a good time. And it's time for today's tough question.
We do our research. Have you done your research?
So we're working like heck.
Today's tough question. What's the real debate?
You sipping my soupe, Guadalupe?
Exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker and Amanda LaFratta.
You drinking my sake, kimosabi?
Oh, my God.
Chris said Georgia never missed a tackle, did they? Boy, they did do a great job of tackling.
Which is weird because they don't do that in some games we've seen. So I don't know who they are.
I mean, Jekyll and Hyde, light switch team, whatever you want to use, they are that. I mean, they lack some maturity, and they don't go out and play their best game each and every week.
They
don't. Now,
they do not.
Probably doesn't help it another championship contender, Amanda, because they're going to play their best game in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to slip there, but I don't know.
You would think, but who knows?
I mean, I could see them playing flat. Well, they got Kentucky and Mississippi State and Georgia Tech left. I could see them playing flat in one of those games. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and predict it. They'll play flat in one of those games.
Kentucky, probably.
I could see Kentucky. Well, Kentucky's just a hot mess, though. All right, so, today's tough question. Your thoughts?
Oh, they have Mississippi State though.
It does state.
Georgia does. Yeah.
They got the Fighting Pirates.
Yes, they do.
Led by Mike Leach. Walk the plank.
Mike
All right,
Leach
so
is-
what do you got for today's tough question, Amanda? Any thoughts? What direction would you like to go here?
I mean, we could go college football playoffs if you wanted to. The chances of Tennessee making it, do you think we'll see Tennessee in the college football playoff?
Love it. How do you want to phrase
Okay.
it? The definitely, probably
We'll do
not.
the 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will have that up here momentarily, and you can check that out. And I still think Tennessee's going to make it.
I think they will.
As a matter of fact, I wouldn't bet 2 mortgage payments on it, but I'd bet a mortgage payment on it. I would bet a mortgage payment that Tennessee still makes the college football playoff. I think Saturday could be a blessing in disguise, because if I don't think let's say Tennessee had won Saturday and Alabama had won, I don't think you want to play Nick Saban. I don't care if you think Tennessee's just better, and they may be. You don't want to play Nick Saban twice. I don't think that's something you want to do. And with the way things shook out with Clemson and everything, I think you should be very, very excited about the potential.
About where you stand. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're having a way different conversation if not for the Alabama and Clemson upset. And by the way, what did you think of Brian Kelly's decision to go forward on 2 at home? The book says not to do that. Alabama was chasing some points as well at one point. Here is my take with the book and the sheet, whether or not you go for 2. It matters with 10 minutes left in the game. It doesn't matter one iota in the third quarter, the second quarter, or the first quarter. And
it sometimes does. And for Alabama's side of it, when they went for 2 and didn't make it, they lost by 1 point. So
yeah, and they had a chance to win it in regulation. I don't go chasing points until that's just my thoughts. I don't go chasing points until the fourth quarter, or pretty much 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter with the way offensive football is nowadays. I don't go chasing points in the first, second, and third quarter, ever. And we've seen teams do that before. Maybe the sheet says do it. Maybe the sheet says you should go for 2 because you're down 2. But in
change
the
the
first
sheet.
quarter, in the first quarter, you watch your language. In the first quarter, you don't know what's going to happen. So to me, using the sheet in the first quarter is just dumb.
Don't do that. Just go for just get the points. Stop going for 2. Just kick the extra point. I mean, especially, I didn't understand, and this is another reason I will go on a tangent about Bill O'Brien, and for the love of God, get him out of Alabama. Going for 2 when you didn't need to in Death Valley in a night game with all of the drunk Tiger Tails.
They don't drink down there, you silly goose.
Don't do it. What is wrong with you? Just get the points that you're supposed to get. Like, don't try this let's go for 2 thing. Stop it. Just kick the extra point.
I'm with you. Smoky Mountain Red said I stand, but that's a Saban decision, right?
At some point, if you're going to be Saban, you have to put your trust in your coordinators and not the ones you have right now.
Smoky Mountain Red said I stand behind losing against Georgia was better than losing in the SEC championship game. Ohio and Michigan, Ohio State he's referring to. Michigan playing later in the season helps us as well. We lost to the best team. We lost to the best team in the best spot, I think is what he's trying to say. So like, subscribe, share, and listen. Portions of the program, as always, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, over 50 years in beautiful North Knoxville. They serve the entire Knoxville area, and City Heating and Air Conditioning is absolutely phenomenal. Why? Because integrity matters. Back in 2 minutes with Chris Landry, the coach on Off the Hook Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here, Viles Automotive on Callahan Drive. I've been selling cars here in East Tennessee for 27 years. In that time, I've come to realize it's not about the car. It's about you, the customer. So I'm here to take care of you just like family. Good credit, bad credit, you name it, we can get you taken care of. If we don't have it, we can find it for you. We go across the country to get any vehicle that you want. And here at Viles Automotive, we don't believe in fake numbers. We just give you great deals. And as always, we want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassy's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassy Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
This is Steve Rain. I own the Midnight Oil and Michelin Tire Direct service station here in Ottawa. It's not a fancy place, never has been, but it's a clean place with clean restrooms and good folks who work here. We sell gas and fix cars, nothing glamorous, but we love what we do and we're going to keep doing it for a long time to come. There's not many real service stations left, and that's a shame. We're the guys just like the guys back in your hometown. We'll fix your tire, change your oil, and put a new set of Michelins on your car. If you want a Twinkie, you'll just have to keep on going. Thanks for the business.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I'm a king of rock, there is none higher.
All right, Amanda LaFratta. So how are we phrasing this question before we go to the message board and we get to Chris Landry of LandryFootball.com? How are we phrasing this fun stuff?
So I have it as today's tough question. Do you think we will see Tennessee in the college football playoff? And nope, not at all. Probably not. Yeah, we might. No doubt we're going.
Where would you fall on that?
No doubt we're going. Just for what happened this past weekend with Alabama and with the Clemson. I don't see another team you can put in there over Tennessee. Like who you can put TCU in there, but if you have Ohio State, Michigan, you have Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU. Let's say those are your 4 from tonight. Tennessee will be 5th. And then I don't even know who will be LSU 6th. I don't know. But you have those in there. We know LSU's not making it. They've already lost 2 games, so they can't make it.
Yeah.
They're not going to make it. Unless they beat Georgia, then they're not going to make it. But I mean, Michigan or Ohio State, one of them's going to have to drop. One of them's going to lose. And it'll be later in the season, so Tennessee wins out. I mean, who else are you going to put in there? There's nobody. I mean, you have Oregon, but nobody wants to see Oregon-Georgia rematch.
Orange Blood, where's the poll? The poll is on Twitter, so check it out. Nathan says, I want to see Michigan and Tennessee play in a semifinal. It would be a good test since Michigan is Georgia light or closest thing to it. Anyway, well, Michigan-Tennessee playing in the semifinal, that would be really, really exciting. So let's bring in Chris Landry of LandryFootball.com. And Chris, how are you, sir? I hope you're having a fantastic morning.
So far, so good. How are you guys doing?
We're well. Go to LandryFootball.com if you want to know more about football than you ever dreamed you could. So I want some message board posters to give me some X's and O's questions for Chris. That's what I want to do here in the next couple of minutes. We do want to look back at the Georgia game, but before we do that, Chris, if we can, if I'm Tennessee, and I know this kind of gets a little bit out of the arena that we usually discuss things in, But if I'm Tennessee with Clemson losing, with Alabama losing, I'm feeling pretty good that if I take care of business, I'm going to be right there at that 4 spot for the college football playoff. What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. A couple of things to keep in mind. The way the committee operates, and I know we can question whether it's good or not or how they do it, but in their mandate is if you don't win your conference championship, you have to be, get the exact word, you have to be significantly better than a conference champion. That's in their bylaws. So in other words, so Tennessee, unless Georgia does something that I don't foresee them doing, Tennessee's not going to play in their conference championship game. So when people are comparing against, again, so Clemson wins the conference championship. TCU wins their conference championship. What you have to say in that committee room is Tennessee is not better than Clemson. They're significantly better. That's how they have to answer that. And they just value conference championships more. Now, you can criticize that because not every conference is equally as strong. And so I think that's a more than a fair debate, but that's kind of the reality. So Tennessee's, regardless of where they are now, and even if they're 4, remember this, and I think this is important for fans to understand, Dave. I'm not trying to, be down, but if they rank like, I don't know where they're going to be ranked, but I'm telling you, even if they're ranked like 4th, that doesn't mean they're going to stay there because nobody's won their conference championship yet. So TCU, Clemson will likely jump them as conference champions. Now, again, you have to use that, are they significantly better? So, look, Tennessee's, the other thing I would say is, let's say it comes down to Oregon. Well, Tennessee got beat just as bad as Oregon got beat. Don't tell me that, the score is different. Anybody that watched the game, it was a beatdown and probably worse because it's later in the year as opposed to early in the year, and it's clear Oregon's gotten better. So I'm not making a case. I'm just saying it's a tougher path than maybe Vols fans might hope, but there's still a possibility. I do think definitely Clemson losing, to your point. Yeah, if it's an unbeaten Clemson winning the conference title, forget it. But a 1 loss Clemson, a 1 loss Oregon, a 1 loss TCU makes it more likely that it could happen. And that's, again, just to explain the criteria. The other thing is, what is the Michigan-Ohio State game going to look like? How close is it? Is it going to be close? Is it going to be one-sided? Because that's going to be pivotal too. The other thing that Tennessee's got to hope for, and I think this is probably going to happen, Georgia has to win the conference championship game.
Yes.
Because if LSU wins it, even though LSU lost to Tennessee, what are they going to do? They value the conference championship. LSU's got 2 losses. Tennessee's got 1. Tennessee lost one head-to-head. Tennessee should absolutely be ahead of LSU, right? Well, maybe they should. I don't know that the committee, at least on their past, may not do that. Now, we've seen precedent for it happening. Ohio State jumped Penn State when Penn State won the Big Ten one year. So it can happen. But all of those things are suppositions that, to me, it's not just what happens, but how it looks and how a team looks. And it's everybody. Fans tend to look at their team in a bubble, and my team, you have to look at everybody the same way objectively because that's what they're going to do. Now, whether they're going to get the right for, I don't know. It usually works itself out, but I still think that they're in the mix. But I think the performance, the dominating way in which they were completely controlled hurts them a great deal because I don't think you look at that and say, yeah, that you lose to the number 1 team, which is a positive. Not many teams may be able to do that to them, but you have to look at that. And again, how does that compare? Oregon may lose a second game. They may not win the conference. There are a lot of things that could take place that right now we can go through, 99 scenarios and only 2 or 3 of them are going to be real relevant in a couple of weeks.
Yep. I got 99 scenarios, but relevance ain't one. I think it was a Jay-Z song. Was that it, Amanda? Kind of? No, not quite.
I
All right.
can't hear you.
All right, sorry. So you've got, she's totally dismissing my Jay-Z reference. All right, so now let's look at Oregon for 1 second. I want to get to the Tennessee-Georgia game. Don't get me wrong, but let's look at Oregon. What do you think of them as a football team? Because it's not as if they get to just kind of finish off the schedule with an easy run. I mean, they got number 24 Washington at home this week. They've got Utah at home. Then they finish off at Oregon State.
Yes.
Do you see this Oregon team
and the conference championship, if they get that far, and they don't play divisions, it's the top two. So who's that going to be? UCLA, USC, whomever, whatever. How it may. So the chances of Oregon going through that unscathed is unlikely. So that's a good thing if you're a Tennessee fan. But if they do go through it, that resume is going to look awfully good. And I would say, as a conference champion with one loss, they probably won't be ranked ahead. But again, that depends. How does it look? How dominant? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. So yes, it's a good thing. It's a bad thing. TCU, same way. I mean, I felt like it's going to be tough for them to run the table. They're getting close. This week's going to be big, but so yeah, I think it's fair to look at it, question it. Here's the thing I will say, and I know this may be a little bit off the topic, but the important thing is to really focus on where Tennessee is.
Sure.
And you want to get there, but the flaws and the narrow path to victory that I talked about on Thursday and all, this team doesn't match up with certain teams. And I don't think Tennessee, to me, as good as they looked all year, I don't know that they're like national playoff caliber. I think there's a path for them to get in. They could play Georgia 10 times and Georgia beat them 9, 8, whatever. Now, how many teams can do that? Maybe only Georgia can, so it's, I'm not saying that they don't belong in there. I'm just saying that I think Tennessee's far from a well-rounded team. I think there are more teams that are well-rounded that I think the real issue is and they're going to finish the season, I think, unbeaten. I don't think there's a team on their schedule that can challenge them. They're just going to have to live off what they've done this year and get a lot of credit. And the good thing is they beat LSU and Alabama. So the LSU beating Alabama is, well, Alabama is not as good. Maybe it's not as good as a win, but the LSU win looks a little bit better. Where the reality is, it is what it is. They beat both of them, and so they're 11-1. They've to me had a better season than I thought they would. Better season than probably most Tennessee fans, other than the ones that just, hey, my team's going. I think we've talked about it, had some real benefits on their schedule, and they took advantage of it. They're really, really good at what they do. But when you have an elite team that can take away and limit what they do, they don't have another path to victory. And that's what I meant to the narrow path that they had. If they can get what they do well going, they can play with anybody. But, it's like the toolbox theory. I use these goofy scenarios, not to be goofy, but to give a better, it's like they're going in and they got only 1 or 2 tools. And, Georgia, for example, can throw it, they can run it, they can defend the run, they can cover, they can play great on special. They do all the things well. And the difficulty for a team like Tennessee and others is that, and I use this example in the past, haven't I? Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, they really were very good. But when they get to the national playoffs, they didn't have success because they weren't well-rounded. To me, the best teams are the teams that can win in multiple ways, because somewhere, somehow, you may be a little off with your strength. Can you win another way? And that's the real test of, to me, a great team. That's the difference between being good and exciting and fun versus being championship level. And I don't think Tennessee is that type of team, although it's been a phenomenal year. And I don't think the loss to Georgia should diminish the success that they've had this year. But the way in which they were dominated kind of proves a little bit of what I'm saying. I don't know that many teams can do that to them, though, this year.
Dean said, I think we should be happy with this awesome season. I don't think we're ready for the Natty. I agree with Coach. It's probably an apt way of looking at it. Like, subscribe, share, and go to Amanda LaFratta. What do you got?
I want to talk about Georgia a little bit right now. I think they've been very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. We don't know which team we're going to see. Against Kent State, against Missouri, we've seen them against Florida. We've seen them not be their best. And then all of a sudden they get up and they play against Tennessee. What are your just general thoughts on Georgia? I know we've talked about the talent's elite and all that stuff, but sometimes they're not playing like what you would expect them to play like.
Well, to my last point, I think they're the most complete team in the country. To your point about they didn't play with this game, that game. Yeah, you're right. When you have some guys injured, you don't play well on offense, you don't play well on defense, you got guys missing, they can pick it up in other aspects of their game. To me, it's not always about style points. It's about being able to finish. And I do think there is something to the fact that, they don't get up for this one or that one. And that's not what you want as a coach. But I don't know. When I watched the Missouri game, I never felt Georgia was going to lose it, even though the score would indicate it was in danger. I never felt they were out of game control. The other thing about Georgia is unlike a team like Tennessee, that's an explosive offense. They're going to score a bunch of points. Georgia's not going to do that. I mean, you look at, the game against Tennessee. I mean, that game felt like a 34-6 game, not 27-13. Mm-hmm. They just throttled it down, particularly when the rain came. They knew they had game control. So, again, Amanda, I think it's about their style. I don't know if they're going to win the national championship. I think they're the most complete team. And I do think there's a little bit of getting up, getting down. I do think they had a little bit of an edge to them. They were ranked third. They heard all about how great Tennessee was, and Tennessee was the flavor of the month. And, they're like, oh, really? I'm no doubt that has to do. Okay, really? Yeah, we won this big game last year. That's how there's no doubt that has a lot to do, particularly with younger guys. So I think that I think that has an effect on you, and I think that it's to me in college football, the big time programs win most of their games on signing day, and they build their team and grow their team. If you look at this Georgia team, they lost a whole bunch of guys to the draft. They've got about 5 guys that could go in the first round this year. They're still loaded. I mentioned that at the beginning of the year. They're not as experienced. They've had injuries. And when they rotate guys that haven't been as good, it's later. You're not what you are at the end of the year as you are at the beginning of the year. They creamed Oregon. I know that. But people then begin to expect that they're going to beat everybody, pummel them by 30 points. That's not going to happen. It never happens that way. And I think the Missouri game, and to me, I don't look at it as the Missouri game that Kent State, you're right. Bad performances. They won. I think that you look at this game, though, and you say, big statement. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt right now who the best team in the country is, but they got to play like it, and they got to finish like it. I don't expect them – they match up very well against, just like Alabama does against Mississippi State, even better. I don't expect a letdown, maybe a little bit off a big win, but not enough to make the game close. I don't think Georgia. I don't think that's going to happen. I think certainly not in the playoffs. So I think that's, to me, where I see it. I can look at every team and say there's been a little bit of a letdown, and to some degree. Maybe Tennessee, didn't look good against Pitt, and Pitt's not, it's winning, surviving, and getting better. if you win that way, quote unquote, ugly, although I would dispute whether wins are ugly, but you know what we mean, and you don't get better, and you have those problems that linger and linger and linger, that's where, to me, you got an issue. 1 or 2 games, it happens all the time, everywhere, with everyone. So, and I think a lot of it, too, finally, I'm running on, but because a lot of things in my head is styles and matchups. Georgia's game plan was a little different against Missouri. I didn't think that they, probably respected enough of what they did, and they were down. Obviously, their top interior defensive linemen weren't playing then. So Missouri, offensively, they kind of, played that game in Kent State game, probably not the way they needed to. They had a different game plan against Tennessee. They were a little bit more aggressive, and they attacked them, and that was the difference. They matched up better, against Tennessee than, say, a team like Alabama does. They're also more talented than Alabama. That's the reality of it. And they've got this team playing better as the season goes along. And I don't know if they're, like I said, I don't know if they're going to win it all. It's just going to depend upon a number of factors, but they certainly have got a complete team.
Chris, let me ask you this. From year to year, and I know Georgia lost a game last year, but I looked at Georgia as an elite team. There have been Alabama national championship teams where I looked at them in the middle of the season and I said, they're an elite team. There's going to be a national champion this year, but is there an elite team that is far better than everybody else? Or is Georgia just a little bit better than everybody else?
A little bit better than everybody else, although, to your point, there's not an elite team, and I don't think there's what I would call the normal close to elite challengers. So, I don't think Georgia's as good as last year's Georgia team. But they're not playing last year's Georgia team. Are they the best team this year? They're the most complete. Speaking of teams that have talent but are not playing well and playing down to their competition like Georgia has, Ohio State's done that all year long, quite a bit. Now, this week, I don't put much into it because 35-mile-an-hour winds with gusts of 50, nobody's throwing it very well. But they did give up defensively a lot of rush yards to Northwestern. So they're just, I don't know about turning it on, but talent-wise, they can play. They can throw it, and I don't think they're as good as Georgia defensively. I think Georgia wins. Michigan is a more physical team. They're not as good at throwing it as, say, Ohio State, but they're really, really good. I think TCU is Tennessee. I mean, they're so close. Great quarterback that's playing great receivers. The difference is they played every team they played pretty good because it's balanced, and they're coming from behind in games, but they're finding ways to win. But I think TCU is good. I don't think like if TCU played Georgia, I think they get the same type of result as we saw with Tennessee beating Georgia. But, familiarity too, Georgia with Tennessee, personnel-wise, with not as much familiarity with TCU might change that a little bit, and TCU might have a little bit more success offensively. But look, here's what makes Georgia really, really good. Again, offensive line, very good. They can run the football downhill with good backs. Maybe not as great as some of the backs that they've had. A quarterback that's just good. Everybody makes fun of him and all of that. But you know what? When things broke down on the first score, who ran up, made a play, and got a touchdown early? Stetson Bennett makes plays, and you know what he does? He makes the biggest plays in the biggest games. And he has a really good, because look at that game-winning drive against Alabama. He's done a lot of things that probably doesn't get credit for, and he has a lot of talent around him. It's a different style. Most teams in the spread RPO system, Georgia's still a play-action-based team. They run the football downhill. They'll throw it deep. They work the tight ends. They don't have great receivers. They've got good ones. And then defensively, they are, when healthy, and they were healthy this past week, they are elite at defensive tackle. Folks, the defensive tackle position, affects an offense more than the defensive end. I can scheme away from a good defensive end. I can't scheme away from the defensive tackle who's too close to the ball. And they dominated Tennessee's run game and, didn't have to play numbers, and they could keep their linebackers in good depth. And what did Georgia do? They blitzed the heck out of them. They said, we're not going to let Hendon Hooker have time. We're going to crash the mesh point. We're going to force the ball out. And they did it. And Tennessee had no answer. I broke down the game again early yesterday morning before the NFL game got started. There were Tennessee backs but there was one play in particular that stood out. Looked like the two inside backers were coming. So they had two backs for Tennessee that were in blitz pickup mode. Georgia dropped those linebackers, and those backs' eyes were on the linebackers, and they're like, they're not coming. Meanwhile, the guy coming right across their face, they lost sight of it. They haven't seen that. Blitz pickup, dumping the screen game. Tennessee is a very simplistic offense, very effective. But when you have somebody good enough to say, we're going to blitz you, the blitz didn't work. Well, why didn't everybody blitz them? Because they can't cover like Georgia can. So they've got maximum guys in coverage. Hendon Hooker's got to get the ball out quick. And when he got it over the middle, what do we say about Hendon? Not as accurate there. And when you pressure him and he's a little bit off platform, tight coverage over the middle. And there was nothing to be had over the deep, except for a couple of times. But the throws were rushed and they were overthrown. Not that Hendon doesn't occasionally overthrow a deep ball. I'm not saying that. But it was pressure-induced mistakes. I love Josh, and I know what he said was we were off our game. They were thrown off their game. That's the difference. If you can get the tempo going, this offense is very difficult to stop for most people, but they did it. So the point is, I think Georgia is the most well-rounded. But are they dominant? Can they be beaten? Yes. It has to be a certain type of team. But they've got more answers. They've got more tools in their tool belt.
I guess I'm just going to lay this out here. What's going on in Alabama? What's going on with Alabama? I think a lot of people want to know that. It's going to be the talk of sports radio or whatever. Mm-hmm. All the sports world is going to say, WTF is going on with Alabama.
Yeah.
What do you think?
A few things. Let's state the obvious. Expectations are you don't lose games. You go to the playoffs and you win them. So, but they've lost 2 games on the road, 2 pretty good teams, close games, competitive, could have won them. But there's also the, poor performance against A&M and Texas and wins. So it's not like everything is great and they just lost these 2 games. There's not. Since Nick has got it rolling, this is the biggest hurdle he's had. What I'm seeing, first of all, there's this assumption that Alabama has the best talent. And of course, why do people say that? Because people don't evaluate or know how to evaluate talent. They go and look on the internet and say, oh, they're ranked number 1. They got the most talent. No, that's not always the case. Maybe ranked number 1. That Alabama, let's look at them offensively. Outstanding quarterback talent. Offensive line is not as good as there have been in the past. Not as talented. The receivers, well, first of all, you're not going to have the level of receivers that they've had in the past. But this receiving corps is not good at all. They don't run good routes. They're not where they're supposed to be. Now, a lot of it is they're freelancing a little too much. Tight end, not very good. They've got a really good quarterback and a really good running back. That's all that makes Alabama look like Alabama. Defensively, Dallas Turner, Will Anderson, good edge guys. They don't have a Jonathan Allen, a Quinnen Williams. They don't have those guys, a defensive tackle. Their linebackers, okay. Their secondary, not as good. Georgia, What's happened to Alabama? The new Alabama is Georgia. Georgia looks like Alabama used to look. Georgia's got more talent. Georgia's more physical. I think that's the first thing to understand. Two, I don't think they're particularly well coached in a lot of areas. Some of those things. The other thing, I've mentioned this in relation to some other teams in Tennessee and other. Alabama is not a complete spread team, but they are more of a passing team that was built around the receivers and the quarterback, and they become more finesse blocking, like Ohio State's become more finesse. Georgia is built differently, and I think they play to that. They practice that way, and I think Alabama has become a little more finesse, so when they need to turn around and run the football and control the game and salt the game away if they get a lead, or they're not as good as they used to be. So it's not like it's the world is crumbling. I mean, to the fans, it is, but it's not like it's a disaster. But there are flaws there. There are definite flaws there that it'll be interesting to see how it's corrected. I also looked at something else. So I looked at Georgia's roster Saturday morning, and I went back, and there were 9 starters on Georgia's roster. Really good players that came down in recruiting to Georgia and Alabama. All 9 of them went to Georgia. Georgia is winning in the right type of recruits. And, I also looked at this. Jermaine Burton left Georgia. There was a reason. Georgia wasn't disappointed that he left. They got an offensive lineman from Vanderbilt. That was okay. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs is a really good one. And Georgia Tech was he wanted to stay there, but he wanted to go where he could compete. My point is that, Georgia hadn't lost any guys. Now, it may change in the portal and all that. Georgia's better. And I think that if you look at it now, so why are you losing to LSU? Well, because they're making some physical errors and mental errors. So it's partly coaching. Its personnel is not dominant. I mean, it's just because you're better. You've got, in the past, they've been so dominant that they'd line up, hand the ball off, and just control the game and win most of their games. They can't do that and impose their will on people as much as they used to. They can do it against some teams, but not against others. And look, they were out-coached by LSU, and they were outplayed by LSU. And LSU played with more discipline. And I don't mean, fighting. I'm talking about more assignment sound. So that in a nutshell, along with a few other things that they're going to have to look at Alabama. And I'll say this in conclusion on it is people would be foolish to give up on Nick Saban and saying that he's done and it's over. Because could I see in the next 3 years him winning a title, another title? I could. But I could also see a scenario where he's won his last title. I mean, I think it depends upon, we're getting to the point at 71, and it looks different. It feels different. How he fixes it, can he do it the same? Now, I get this a lot. Well, it's NIL, and the players don't listen. It's not an Alabama issue. That's a college football issue. They're not having as much of a problem with it in other places. So I think there are a lot of question marks, and I do think this is as close to what I was expecting the end to look like than I've ever seen since next year. I'm not saying this is the end. I'm just saying there are more hurdles that have to be overcome for him to fix it. So that's in a nutshell what's going on, and I'm very curious to see how they fix it and how much better they can be. And look, they're still in elite categories. Only a few programs that can say that they're at that level. Historically dominant, but right now, and not even close, Georgia is the best program in the country last year and this year. Even last year in Alabama winning a game, Georgia, it looks on tape, it looks from a football standpoint, Georgia's the better program right now. And we'll see if Alabama can catch up and surpass them, whatever. But and remember who was such a big factor in a lot of those recruits, particularly in Georgia. And look, the Georgia job is – I don't know if people that don't follow recruiting know this, but You know, it always was Florida, Texas, California. You know, you're looking at Georgia, the state of Georgia, in terms of quality and quantity, is in the top 5 nationally. And you go to California right now and try to find you an abundance of defensive linemen, you're not going to find them.
Yeah.
But you go into Georgia, and right now, Georgia's the place. It's the program. It's so they've got it going, and that's a difficult challenge that, on top of everything else said, is a bigger challenge, a bigger hurdle for Nick to overcome. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying it's a bigger hurdle, a taller hurdle, and I'm curious to see how it's going to play out.
Amanda likes to call those defensive tackles the war daddies.
Absolutely. I do too. That's exactly what I call them. I call them big war daddies.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's what they are, and they got them. And they got them.
Actually, Chris, Amanda hates that term.
I hate that term.
And I use
think it is very
I love
odd.
it. I use it all the time.
You're being sarcastic, and then boy, that went over my head. You asked me how I'm doing this morning. Apparently, I'm not real sharp.
No, to put it on a Tennessee level, the John Hendersons, the Albert Hainsworths of the world, those are the guys that I think are program changers to some extent, almost as much as a quarterback. But we'll talk.
Correct, real quick, because that's how you stop this. People have asked all along, how do you stop a Tennessee type? Oh, they're unstoppable. There are not many people can do it, but it's not unstoppable, because you stop the run and you have those. Sorry, Amanda, cover your ears. War daddies. Then you can maximize guys in coverage. You can drop those linebackers deeper. You can play man coverage. If you've got ability to cover and you can control the line of scrimmage, that's what makes the juice go. Then you can blitz on top of that, because you can control the line of scrimmage and you can force the ball to come out quicker. That's the difference. I know I've overstayed my time here, but I want to get that in. I think that's important.
You are welcome anytime. Chris Landry of LandryFootball.com. Join that site. Know more about football than you ever imagined you could. It is awesome. Thank you, Chris.
I'm going to go scout some more war daddies. Y'all have a great one. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks. It is almost as much, whatever we call them. I do believe it is almost as much those guys that can change the trajectory of a program, more so than, not more so, but almost as much as a quarterback. If you have a couple of those guys, I mean, do you think Georgia would be better off with who's the best quarterback? You say CJ Stroud, most people would say is the best quarterback in the nation. Would they trade their interior defensive lineman for CJ Stroud? If there was some sort of package deal where Ohio State got Stetson Bennett and they got the interior defensive lineman of Georgia, and Georgia got an upgraded quarterback with CJ Stroud, but had to take Ohio State's interior defensive lineman, I don't think they would. I think those guys are the difference, and I think they're almost as rare, Amanda, whatever we call them, as the 5-star elite quarterback. And I don't know if Tennessee has that guy coming, but they ultimately are going to have to win some battles against some other SEC teams to get them, because everybody wants them.
No, I think that sometimes though those guys are built in the program. I think that maybe they don't come out, of high school being that guy. I mean, as we've seen, like Aaron Donald, you don't come out of high school being that guy. Sometimes you get that chip on your shoulder and you become that guy in a program. So That's why I'm the recruiting thing of, number 1 class and this and 5-star and all that stuff. I don't take much stock into it. I just don't. Because I went through the list of the All-American, first team All-American, and half of them were 3-stars. So I don't really take into account.
But that's misleading, because there are a lot more 3-stars than there are 4 and 5 stars.
Yes.
So I think there are two. Yes, there's the Aaron Donalds of the world who developed, but he had God gave him with a special burst. I think the ones that I'm probably referring to, you're talking about guys that develop over time, developmental players. the guys that I look at that just have special bursts from day one would be like an Albert Ainsworth. He striked you. I mean, there was a difference in his burst. So a little bit of both. I mean, you're not going to show up on campus and just be lazy and not get better, but I think some of that's God-given ability. Certainly.
Oh yeah, but sometimes it's not looked at. Like sometimes it's not recognized, is what I'm saying. Sometimes these people don't. The recruiting, everybody that's like, oh, recruiting 5-star, 4-star, yada yada yada. Sometimes people miss things.
You have to, with Aaron Donald, you have to have special, incredible, crazy quickness to play at that size and be effective. With Albert Ainsworth, he was a little light too at one point. People forget that he was smaller than John Henderson, but you have to have that special fast twitch burst. I don't think you can coach that part of it, but I think you can coach people to get bigger and stronger. And if they have that fast twitch burst, they're able to take care of that. They've got fast twitch burst at Nutrition World. Go to nutritionw.com. That's nutritionw.com. Nutrition World is fantastic. One of the best supplement e-commerce stores in the biz, and Nutrition World is phenomenal. And you know that you're not going to get some supplement that you don't know the background or how it's been put together. You know that you're only going to get the best. Go to nutritionw.com, order all of your supplements from there, and you will absolutely love it. Heisman Trophy Talk. We had a question how the Georgia game affected Hendon Hooker in the Heisman Trophy. Well, I do happen to have a vote, so I will get to that right after this. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Life's about choosing where you want to go and mapping out a financial path to get there. Of course, things don't always go according to plan. An experienced financial advisor can help you avoid potential hazards and find alternate routes. The right financial advisor is there for the journey, helps you plan for what's coming, makes adjustments along the way, and keeps you on track to reach your specific goals. Are you on the road to success? Contact us for a complimentary review to find out.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here. I want to personally invite you to North Knoxville's newest sports bar and restaurant. It's Big Orange Phillies, located in Black Oak Center. And yes folks, it's happening in Halls. Big Orange Phillies offers family-friendly environment with homemade meals and the best deli-style subs around. Billiards, darts, jukebox, shuffleboard, and cornhole, and a full bar. We also offer valet parking on weekends and during special events. We even have a covered back patio. It's happening at Big Orange Phillies. We want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
This is Al's Dish Barbecue Supply, so come on in and see all the different rubs and sauces we have, plus the complete line of Green Mountain grills. Don't be overwhelmed. We have plenty of help so you can produce the best barbecue and amaze your family and friends. Barbecue is America's food. We'll do what we can to bring you all the best products. We're Al's Nest Barbecue, where Chattanooga goes to grill.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
All right, so welcome back. We had a question about the Heisman Trophy. So here are my thoughts on the Heisman Trophy. Not a lot has changed, and I do have a vote. If you look at the Heisman odds, C.J. Stroud is the favorite at this point. That wasn't the case last week, but we're still talking about a really close, tight race. So did Hendon Hooker hurt his Heisman Trophy campaign last week? For a lot of voters, yes. For me, not quite as much. And I'll look at C.J. Stroud, and I look at the game against Northwestern in which Ohio State only scored 21 points. Well, the weather was atrocious. That was a tough passing game. And then I'll look at Hendon Hooker. I thought they got beat up front. So I think that was incredibly difficult for him. And I don't change a lot in terms of my Heisman vote and what I'm thinking at this point. I haven't made any decisions now. I will say this. I think Bo Nix, and I can't believe I'm saying that, continues to move up the board. And I don't think that lasts because I think Oregon's schedule is incredibly difficult. But that's kind of where I stand. We had a question about that. Our Heisman Trophy update is brought to you by our friends at Guardian Investments. In a world where knowledge is power, education is the battery that makes it run. At Guardian Investment Advisors, they want you to believe in doing what you absolutely can to meet your retirement goals, but they want to make sure to educate you as well so that you know why they're suggesting certain things. So if you want to check them out, the awesome part is you can be involved with a top-notch financial investor because of COVID and all we went through via video teleconferencing. And all you need to do is go to GIPlantoday.com. That's GIAPlantoday.com. And this day in sports history is now on Off the Hook Sports.
This day in sports history, putting things in perspective, exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
You're so old. When you were a kid, rainbows were black and white.
And Amanda LaFratta.
New kids on the block just called. They wanted you as a backup dancer.
All righty, so this day in Tennessee sports history. Thank you, Brittany, for helping us with that each and every day. And this day in sports history, it is already November the 7th. And I love Mondays because we get to go a little bit further back. So let's go back to, how about November the 5th? Because that was on a Saturday. Lady Vols basketball team defeated Carson Newman 128-59 in the 15th consecutive preseason victory. I mean, I think that's one of those, what do you do? Especially back in, that was in 2018. Rookies, I guess, she accounted for 67 points, 33 rebounds. They try to play the young ones. That didn't help. And then November the 6th, the unranked Vols upset number 7 Georgia Tech for the third time in 5 years. That was in 1965. The Vols won 21-7. And November the 7th, actually today, if you go back to 1959, Tennessee defeated number 1 LSU 14-13 in Knoxville. LSU was the defending national championship team, and they were on a 19-game winning streak. Jim Cartwright scored first for the Vols with a 26-yard pick six. Bill Majors and Wayne Grubb stopped Billy Cannon short on a 2-point conversion. That's known as the stop in Rocky Top. Billy Cannon fumbled, resulting in an LSU turnover, and the Vols secured the win with a victory. And Billy Cannon would go on to sell his Heisman Trophy because of gambling issues. But that's not really a pertinent part of the story.
I don't think we should put that in there for today in sports history for Tennessee. We'll just leave that part out.
I've seen that trophy, though, spinning in the barbecue restaurant that he sold it to, and it's kind of neat.
Hey, at least they like the trophy, you know? So maybe it was a solid investment for whoever owns that barbecue store.
I think it was. I think it probably worked out quite well. So this day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by Zach England of Best and Brock. Man, I'm telling you, if you're anywhere in the Chattanooga area, Zach England of Best and Brock, you can get a free consultation at 423-829-1043. Let me try that again. 423-829-1043. That's 423-829-1043. Well-trained in whatever sort of defense you need, but with Zach in particular, personal injury, the lawyers are going to be absolutely well paid on the insurance company's end, and Zach will provide you with the sort of defense you need, and he'll go after the money you deserve if you've been involved and in any sort of accident. And that happens a lot in the Chattanooga area because you have a lot of transport trucks and you have a lot of interstates converging in one place. So the lawyers for the insurance companies are going to be boned up. You should be as well. That's Zach England of Best and Brock. Zach England. Zach's got your back. So Amanda LaFratta, as we look to the message board, Smoky Mountain Red said, I will say this. I thought it was smart to have the defensive DB level of the crowd noise on the scoreboard. They did that at Georgia. They do that at Tennessee, the decibel level. Does anybody really think that's accurate?
I don't know if it's accurate, but I think it is smart to do because, I mean, if you're looking at it and it's not that high, everybody's going to yell because they need to do their part to make it higher. I mean, I think that it's a good thing to do. And if it is high, then people are going to get, louder to make it as high as they can go. People want to break records. I don't know. I mean, it's a thing. So I think the more you pump up the crowd, the better it is for your team.
Yeah, I almost think you could put just like a magical number up there and call it the loud level. And we're over 48 on the loud level or 5,000 on the loud level.
48 doesn't sound good.
No,
we're over 48. We're about, midway.
In Tennessee, you could do like 0 to 34. Or Georgia, you could do 0 to 34. 34 being their all-time best player, Herschel Walker. Or at Tennessee, you could do 0 to 16. I just feel like we're making
that's maybe, but does it hype up the crowd and does it help your team? Yes.
Agreed. Antonio said Georgia has Tennessee's number, period. Y'all keep going back to 3 passes. That didn't lose us the game. We could not stop them offensively. They showed us mercy by not running up the score. Yes and no to that. If you take away the punt that went out at the 1, if Hendon Hooker hits a couple of balls downfield, I think you're talking about a real football game. As it turns out, that was not a close game as the score might indicate. If you look at that from afar, and I think that helped Tennessee not to drop as far because they're number 4 still in the AP and coaches poll. You look at that and you're like, oh, well, that was at Georgia. That was just about a 2-touchdown loss. That's not that bad. But really, I mean, Tennessee was, and except for maybe a brief moment in the second half, was never really a threat to come back and win that game, and was in desperation mode late in the first quarter and early in the second quarter. So if you really watched that game, and Amanda, I know you did, I don't think Tennessee was a threat. But I go back to this. If the worst case scenario, which it looks like right now, is Tennessee's in the Sugar Bowl and they've won 11 games, that's just an incredibly great step in the right direction. And they'll probably make, I think, the college football playoff. That to me is yet another step in the right direction. So are they ready, talent level from 1 to 85 on scholarship to play with any team in the nation, Georgia included? Probably not. But did we think they would be in August?
No. Most people were happy with 8 wins. I mean, let's not get crazy here. Most people at the beginning of the season, we did a poll, were happy with 8 wins or 9 wins. That was where everyone thought that Tennessee's ceiling was 9 wins. And they they've destroyed that ceiling.
The over-under beforehand, remember, was 7.5 from Vegas. And you and I both said 9.
Yeah, I took the over.
Yeah, I thought that was an easy one. I thought there were 3 easy ones. I thought it was Auburn at 6.5. I would have taken the under. Now, the one that I would have lost would have been Alabama at 10.5. I thought they would have been the over.
I think everyone lost that.
Yeah, but those were the 3, and really those are pretty much sucker bets because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to get hurt. You know this better than I do because you do like to gamble. The long-term bets are not good bets in general, right?
The best long-term bets that you can do is when you know someone's better than what Vegas is looking at him to be. So, like, I know someone, I can't remember his name, but just won like $75 million in a bet for the Astros to win it all. And I mean,
Oh,
it's
I
the
know.
biggest winner ever in the history of sports gambling.
I know who you're talking about. That guy owns a mattress company.
Yes, Mattress
Yeah.
Mac or whatever his name is.
Yeah. So what he does is he says everybody gets a free mattress if the Astros win the World Championship. If they win the World Series, if they win it all, if they win a championship, they win a free mattress. So then he offsets that by betting a large amount. So at the end of the day, and Sports Illustrated did another story on him this past year. And I've seen like 4 or 5 over the past 10 years, or at least since the Astros became relevant because they were big cheaters. And he basically breaks even at the end of the day because he gives away so many mattresses. The $75 million pays for the mattresses, but I guess he could still lose $75 million and not give away the mattresses. I don't know. He's got it figured out where somehow he breaks even, and it's a great marketing ploy, which makes you wonder why more people don't do that. Reminding the portions of the program are brought to you by Vassy Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive in beautiful Cleveland. They have industrial mowers, commercial mowers. They have residential mowers and blowers. I'm actually headed up there to get a blower because my poor wife, we have this little wimpy blower, and she blew off the she was blowing all weekend and blowing leaves off of the driveway. And then the next day it was completely covered again because we live in a foresty area. You know where I live. It's like you have to go. It's like you're driving into the Bat Cave.
It's over the river and through the woods, basically.
Yeah. And so we're getting an industrial blower this week. So there will be more blowing at the Hooker household. So
everybody needs that in their life.
Who doesn't need that? You're absolutely right. And all right, so we want to get to a chance for you to win stuffs, and message board bingo is a great opportunity to do that. I remind you, Zool Beer Company, again, Zool Beer Company, XUL Beer.com is a great place to check out, and a great place downtown where you have just parking downtown. You never hear about that in Knoxville. You were there over the weekend. Worldwide award-winning craft beer. It is simply awesome. So it is time for message board bingo, and that's brought to you by Craft Treats is one, crafttreats.com. You go to crafttreats.com, use the promo code Off the Hook. That's Off the Hook, and you will get a discount on your pet's favorite treats. Now, some of those include the chill pills, which have the CBD cannabinoids, and they're going to be able to help your pet with digestive issues, arthritis issues, or anxiety issues, because all pets get scared at times, and they bark and they get wild. So you can go to crafttreats.com, or if you don't have a pet, we'll hook you up with Owl's Nest Barbecue, a gift pack from them. And they're right there in the Ottawa area. They've got the sauces and the rubs. They've got it all at Owl's Nest Barbecue, including the Green Mountain Grill, which is sweet. It is time for message board bingo. Here's how it works. Amanda will read off a post on a message board, and you tell us which team's message board that was posted on. And after a weekend of pure craziness, I'm excited to see where we go. So message board bingo is now.
Are Georgia players taking HGH/steroids? I get they have the most talented teams, but guys like Ringo and Washington look a bit more inflated than normal athletes. Does the NCAA still do random testing?
Yes, they do, but I'll say this. When big money's... I'm going to answer the question, and then we'll go to the message board. So who posted that? Yes, they do, but I'll say this, whether it's Georgia, Tennessee, wherever, NFL, college football, when big money's at stake, there is always a designer drug person that's going to be ahead of the curve that stuff can't get tested for. That's what happened with the whole Barry Bonds thing. So, all right, Brandon says Bama. Chris says Bama. Daniel says, Dave, maybe have Craft Treats make some treats for Georgia fans so they don't bark at people.
Well, we're on that right now. We're trying to get anything.
Brittany says, oh, good grief. Tennessee?
No,
It's not Tennessee. I would have gone Tennessee. So you got 10
not
seconds.
Alabama, not Tennessee.
All right. So who else you got? Can we get a hint?
SEC.
SEC, not Tennessee, not
Not
Alabama.
Alabama.
I got called Howdy Doody because I have red hair. It's clever.
You have red hair?
Yeah, it's getting white.
Well, it's blondish red, not strawberry blonde.
Yeah, so I got Howdy Doody. I was always a fan of strawberry shortcake when I got called that when I was in elementary school.
Oh.
Yeah.
I had something strawberry shortcake, and you could scratch it and sniff, and it smelled like strawberries. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
It was like 5.
I will tell this. Unnamed source, especially since you're unnamed source, it is impossible for you to insult me. All right. So do we want to go message board bingo round 2? No, Brittany says Florida. How about Florida?
Brittany is right. It is Florida.
Brittany, email me at you have my email because you supply us with this day in Tennessee sports history. So go ahead and shoot me an email and we will hook you up with whatever you desire. You don't have pets. So I want to give one away for craft treats because people need to experience craft treats and what it can do for your pet. And if you do that, it's going to be a game changer for your pet. All right. So let's get to round 2 of message board bingo.
A GoFundMe.
Seriously though, I got to read this. The dumbest message board poster of all time. Oh yeah, steroids are another reason we lost. Georgia has the steroid IV in every athletic group. No, they don't. Silly.
I don't know. I think it's just speculation. I mean, if it happens, it happens. It's going to come out eventually. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's not going to come out. I mean, that's one of those things. It's like is Nick Saban retiring? And I know we've talked about this, but like if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like just who cares? Like.
All right, here we go. So, all right, Buffalo Bob Smith or Amanda. Do you know that references to?
I do not.
It's Howdy Doody's friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Howdy Doody is a little before my time.
It's a little before my time too.
Okay,
all right.
Just
I just Googled. All right. So, what was Howdy Doody's girlfriend's name? Polka Dotty. Does that mean we're not a boyfriend girlfriend? We're both married.
Polka Dotty.
Yeah, you could be Polka Dotty. I love it. All right, Polka Dotty. What do we got? I'm going to replay the bet.
Odd. Okay. GoFundMe for High Freeze, not Hugh Freeze, High Freeze, plus hookers equals SEC greatness. I think we can get him cheap. Just keep some hookers on the side. It's the easiest and most financially responsible option.
I got no idea. Read it one more time.
GoFundMe for High Freeze plus hookers equals SEC greatness. I think we can get him cheap. Just keep some hookers on the side.
I know this.
It's the easiest and most financially responsible option.
Brandon says, I think he was the first to say Auburn. I think that was correct.
It is not Auburn.
It's not Auburn? I was
No.
going Auburn. By the way, Hugh Freeze with the big win against Arkansas.
I saw that.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze is going to make some women of the night very happy in some SEC city soon.
His last year's quarterback did not fare so well last night against Kansas City Chiefs. Malik Willis from Liberty led the Titans to an overtime defeat.
Yes.
Unfortunate. I went to bed before that ended.
Led them to a defeat. All right. So anybody Ole Miss? No, Ole Miss doesn't need a coach. A&M, Texas A&M. Brandon says,
It is Texas A&M. No, who's thinking of fiscal responsibility right now? Texas A&M.
All right. Well, go ahead and unnamed source. We appreciate your support. You can email me at we appreciate you as well, Notre Dame. But our winner is, I'm going to put in my email so you can shoot me your info and I will hook you up. So our winner was A&M. And Brandon was the first one to win it. So there is my email right there. Feel free to reach out. and have a absolute fantastic day. And we certainly appreciate you. Thank you very much to the recent poster, Smoky Mountain Red, Unnamed Source. We love you. Orange Blood. Just a ton of people as the show continues to grow. Hit another milestone over the weekend, and we appreciate you. She's Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker. Go to andymasonrealestate.com. Don't make thousands of dollars mistake by going with another realtor. That's andymasonrealestate.com. Anywhere in the Knoxville area, he will take care of you. For Amanda LaFratta, I'm Dave Hooker. This is